Okay, imagine this. You're walking through Tallinn, the old town in Estonia, cobblestones, medieval buildings, all that charm. And you start noticing the people, really looking at them. One minute you see someone who's maybe sharp cheekbones, really striking blue eyes, kind of that classic Nordic look, you might think. But then turn a corner and you see someone else. Maybe darker eyes, olive skin, or even features that feel subtly different, maybe more Central Asian. It makes you stop and think, right, how can this one relatively small country up in Northern Europe have people who look so, well, varied? It feels like a real puzzle, a Baltic mystery almost. So today, that's what we're diving into. What makes Estonians look so different?
Yeah, and it's more than just, listing off different features. They'll definitely talk about those. It's really a journey through their DNA, through history, the impact of wars, language, which is huge here, migrations from way back.
Yeah.
Even national myths play a part. Researchers keep pointing to Estonia's location. It's always been this crossroads for like over 3,000 years. You've had Slavic genes, Nordic genes, these ancient Uralic groups, Baltic people, all mixing. It's genuinely one of the few spots in Europe where that old Finno-Ugric heritage is so tangled up with the later Indo-European waves. So our mission today is basically to unpack that whole complex story, see what the history and the genetics tell us.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, let's unpack it then. Let's see what the sources show us about this really unique place. And genetics feels like the right place to start, doesn't it? The building blocks.
Absolutely. The genetics really lay the groundwork. And what's so fascinating is how much Estonia's actual geography, its physical place on the map, shaped the people. For thousands of years, it wasn't just near a root. It was like this crucial meeting point, a genetic funnel almost, just drawing different groups in, constantly mixing these different genetic streams together.
So it's not just a theory, the actual data shows this mixing.
Oh, definitely. The science is really clear on this. There were some major genetic studies. University of Tartu did them back in 2019, I think. Really groundbreaking stuff. They found that, yeah, okay, most Estonians, maybe over 60%, share a lot of DNA with ancient Northeast European populations, which kind of makes sense location-wise. But here's the kicker. They also carry detectable traces and up to 15% of Siberian and Central Asian ancestry.
Wow, 15%. That sounds like quite a lot, especially compared to, say, their neighbors.
It is significant, yeah.
Yeah.
And that detectable trace, that 15%, it's a really key piece of the puzzle. It's not just like a tiny blip. It points to these incredibly deep historical connections, migrations maybe, that really challenge the simpler ideas we have about European genetics. It forces us to think broader, about how people moved across Eurasia way back when. It means parts of their genetic story literally connect them far to the east. That fundamentally changes how we might view the continent's deep history.
Okay, that really does reframe things. And you mentioned language earlier, linking it to physical traits. That's where it gets even more interesting for me. Tell us more about the Finno-Ugric language connection. It's not something most people immediately link language and looks.
Right, but it's absolutely central to understanding Estonia. It sets them apart. Unlike most of Europe, they don't speak an Indo-European language, like German or Russian or Polish. They speak Estonian, and Estonian is part of that ancient Finno-Ugric family, along with Finnish and Hungarian, believe it or not. It's an old language group.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds completely different from the neighbors.
And where did that language group come from originally?
Well, historians and linguists, they trace these languages back to a Siberian core, specifically around the Ural Mountains. So when you hear Estonian, you're hearing echoes from way back, from a totally different linguistic branch with Eastern roots. And yes, researchers have actually drawn lines between this language family and certain inherited physical traits that you can still see today.
Okay, so what does that look like specifically? What kind of traits are we talking about?
Well, some Estonians might have, say, subtly almond-shaped eyes, different from the typical European shape, or maybe more pronounced higher cheekbones. That's often linked to Finno-Ugric ancestry. You might see someone in Estonia whose facial structure, wouldn't seem out of place if you saw them in northern Mongolia or among the Khanty people in Russia. These are regions tied to that heritage. It's a real visible link between their language roots and their ancient ancestors.
That's amazing, like history written on their faces. Okay, let's tackle that stereotype then. The Baltic blonde myth. Are all Estonians fair-haired, blue-eyed? What's the reality?
Yeah, it's a common picture, but nope, not quite. It's way more nuanced. It's true that up north, especially near the coast, you do see a lot of light hair, maybe around 70% in some spots, naturally light. But head south in Estonia, and it's a different picture, more diversity. Researchers found plenty of medium brown hair, even some auburn or reddish tones down there,
Yeah.
especially among groups like the Sudaisato and Voro, who have their own distinct cultural history too.
And there are specific genes involved in hair and eye color, right? How do they play out in Estonia?
Exactly. There's a gene complex, scientists call it HRC2OCA2. It's strongly linked to lighter hair and eyes. And yes, it is more common in Estonia than in, say, Central or Southern Europe. But like you said, it's not spread evenly. There was a genome study in 2021. It found light blue eyes were most common right along the coast. Maybe that Nordic connection again, historical sea routes perhaps.
Mm.
But inland, much more variety. Gray-green eyes, light brown even. It just shows how, even within a small country, the local geography, who settled where, it all shapes the gene pool over time. Microdiversity.
So the classic Baltic blonde look is more of a northern coastal thing, not the whole country.
Interesting. Okay, what about height? People often picture Northern Europeans as tall. Does that hold true for Estonia?
Oh, it definitely holds true. They are quite tall, actually. The Estonian Biobank data from 2022 showed average male height around 180.5 centimeters. That's about 5'11". And women average about 167.5 centimeters, so 5'6". That puts them right up there with the tallest populations globally. Closer to the Dutch or Scandinavians than, say, Russians or Belarusians next door.
And why is that? Just good living.
Well, it's a mix. Better nutrition and economic growth since the Soviet era definitely play a part. Healthier lives, taller people. But there's a strong genetic component, too. They seem to have a higher frequency of certain gene variants linked to growth hormone receptors, the ones that influence how tall you get. So it's environment and genetics working together. Right, so it's not just diet. It's a combination of recent history and deep genetic heritage making them stand out, literally. Now, you mentioned something earlier that sounded really key. The facial structure itself being this blend, this tapestry of East and West.
Yes, I think this is maybe the most defining thing visually. That blend. It's not just one influence or the other, it's the combination. Scientists actually took facial measurements, things like how far cheekbones project, the width of the nose bridge, the chin shape. And they found Estonian measurements often fall right between the typical Finnish measurements and typical Russian measurements. It's like their faces physically represent that geographic position at the crossroads.
So what does that look like in practice, if
Yeah.
you were trying to describe it?
Okay, so you might see those high sculpted cheekbones that's quite Finno-Ugric. Then maybe combined with a straighter nose, sometimes slightly upturned, that could be more of a Nordic influence. And often you see narrower jawlines, maybe pointier chins. That seems to be part of the Baltic regional blend. It's the way these features combine in one person that can look quite unique. East meets West, literally in the face.
That's such a powerful image, a face telling that whole story.
But it's really crucial to stress there isn't one single Estonian look. That's not the point. The point is the incredible range you see, the variety of combinations. That diversity is the story. It reflects thousands of years of different groups meeting, mixing, settling.
Okay, so bringing it all together, what does it mean for Estonian identity today? You mentioned it can be a bit complex, even divisive.
It definitely can be. National identity is super strong in Estonia for obvious historical reasons, regaining independence. But defining what it means to look Estonian, that can spark debate. You might hear some people argue that maybe darker features aren't traditionally Estonian, perhaps favoring a more Nordic ideal. But then many others will strongly push back and say, no, that Finno-Ugric diversity, including those Eastern links, that is our fundamental heritage. And this isn't new. During the Soviet times, there were efforts to kind of erase those distinctions, promote a standard look.
But since independence, there's been a push to reclaim that heritage.
Oh, absolutely. A really powerful cultural revival. People are actively re-embracing indigenous looks, supporting regional languages like Voro and Seto, celebrating traditions that were maybe suppressed. It's about embracing the complexity, not trying to fit into one box.
And that conversation is still ongoing, especially with modern life.
Exactly. Things like immigration, more mixed families, media images of Baltic beauty, they all keep the conversation alive. It's a really fascinating example of how genetics, history, culture, and identity are constantly interacting. There was an Estonian journalist who put it beautifully, I think. They wrote something like, "We look like nowhere else because we come from everywhere and decided to stay."
Wow, that really captures it. We come from everywhere and decided to stay. So in the end, what makes Estonians look different isn't just, hair color or eye shape. It's this deep complexity, standing at the edge of worlds, East and West,
Yeah,
past and future. It's about resilience.
totally. Their appearance tells these incredible stories, stories of ancient migrations across vast lands, of surviving occupations, of holding on to a unique language against all odds, and carrying these genetic gifts, across tundra and sea for thousands of years. Each face is like a little piece of that epic history.
So the next time you meet someone from Estonia or see pictures, maybe look a bit closer. You're not just seeing a face. You're seeing maybe 10,000 years of quiet strength, of survival, of mixing, a whole history waiting to be seen.